Money, 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 money. Can you use any money today? Money, 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 money. Nice new bills that we're giving away.
We've been increasing our debt by almost $800 billion today, and more than $3 trillion over the last 5 years is the right thing to do. They should be upfront about it. They should explain why they think that more debt is good for our economy. How can the Republican majority in this Congress explain to their constituents that trillions of dollars of new debt is good for our economy? How can they explain that they think it's fair to force our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren to finance this debt through higher taxes? That's what it'll have to be. Why is it right to increase our nation's dependence on foreign creditors? They should explain this. Maybe they can convince the public they're right. I doubt it. Because most Americans know that increasing debt is the last thing we should be doing. After all, I repeat, the baby boomers are about to retire. Under the circumstances, any credible economist would tell you we should be reducing debt, not increasing it. Democrats won't be making arguments to support this legislation, which will weaken our country. Weaken our country. We're being asked to do what shouldn't be asked of us, to increase the debt to almost $9 trillion. I hope everyone walking down to these desks today will understand what they're doing to our country. On this side of the aisle, we know.
There are photographs on every one, Lincoln, Grant, and Washington, or you might like the ones with Henry Clay. Can you use any money today?
Add to the deficit, add to the debt. Just also vote on increasing the debt limit on the same bill.
Well, that's something that we talked about. I personally, my personal feeling is that I'm not sure, and a lot of my caucus doesn't agree on this, but I think it may be better to do the debt ceiling, raise it next year rather than now.
Why?
I want the Republicans to have some buy-in on the debt. They're going to have a majority in the House. I think they should have some kind of a buy-in on the debt. I don't think it should be when we have a heavily Democratic Senate, heavily Democratic House.
2 million, 4 million, 6 million, 8 million, 10. Take what you want. When it's gone, you can come back again.
The fact that we're here today to debate raising the debt limit is a sign of leadership failure. Leadership means the buck stops here. Instead, Washington is shifting the burden of bad choices today onto the backs of our children and grandchildren in America. And it's a debt problem and a failure of leadership. Americans deserve better. I therefore intend to oppose the effort to increase America's debt limit. I suspect you know who I'm quoting.
Joe Biden.
That is Senator Barack Obama in 2006 voting against raising the debt ceiling.
And I think what is important is understand that the raising the debt limit was not in question in the outcome.
52 to 48.
In the outcome of that vote.
It's a close vote, 50 to 48.
Well, we've had closer. I think. I think it's important that the outcome, based on the outcome of that vote, as I mentioned, the full faith and credit was not in doubt. Full faith and credit of our government and our economy was not in doubt. And the president used it to make a point about needing to get serious about fiscal discipline. And we, as I said earlier, are dealing with the legacy of decisions that have been made over the past many years. Not paying for a prescription drug benefit, not paying for wars, not paying for tax cuts that changed our fiscal situation much more markedly than anything ever had. So I think it is up to, and it's important for Congress, because we know not to play politics with this, not to play games, to find a way to raise that debt limit, understanding that we have to, as I mentioned to Matt, we're going to have to take some serious steps to get our fiscal house in order. But we understand, we know what happens. We know the catastrophic actions with things like Social Security and Medicare if you threaten the solvency of the government.
So he only voted that way because he knew that it was going to pass.
And I think clearly he was sending a message.
But he knew it was going to pass. That's why he voted against it that way.
His vote was not necessarily needed on that.
So I guess then just extending that, it would be okay for other senators to do the same thing this year, as long as they know that ultimately...
There may be some that send a message, but I think what is important is that the ultimate bottom line is we shouldn't upset the notion of that full faith and credit. We shouldn't, as some have rhetorically done leading up to this, suggest that that's a good way to deal with this, is simply to let, to not pass that extension. We understand, as Austin said, and look, Austin is a very bright economist. The effects of something like that, as he said last weekend, would exceed anything that we saw in the financial collapse in 2008.
Right, and just a quick question.
Money, 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 Uncle Sam puts it right on the line.
I will start with your questions.
Ben. Thanks, Jay. A couple questions on the spending debate. I want to come back to this quote that Senator Obama had in 2006 when he voted against extending the debt limit, and he called it a sign of leadership failure in terms of potentially raising the limit, and that it's a sign of countries financing the U.S. government's reckless fiscal policies. Now, of course, he and his administration are saying it's urgent to extend that debt limit again. Can you explain, since this is back in the news, why that is not hypocrisy?
What I can tell you, Ben, is that the president, as David Plouffe said yesterday, regrets that vote and thinks it was a mistake. He realizes now that raising the debt ceiling is so important to the health of this economy and the global economy that it is not a vote that even when you are protesting an administration's policies, you can play around with. And you need to take very seriously the need to raise the debt limit so that the full faith and credit of the United States government is maintained around the globe. The consequences, as Secretary
That
Geithner...
haven't been printed yet, you can have them by the stack. Coins that haven't been minted yet that you never have to give
many
back.
others, including the Speaker of the House, Senate Minority Leader, Congressman Ryan, have pointed out, the consequences of failing to raise the debt ceiling would be
Money, 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 Uncle Sam puts it right on the line.
of the economy, on the impact on interest rates, on job creation, on growth would be devastating. Others outside of government, including former Treasury Secretary Henry
And
Paulson.
if we ever run out of checks for him to sign, you can have mine.
S&P Chief Economist David Weiss.
All of mine. You can have mine.
For example, said that it could cause significant and long-lasting financial and economic disruption. J.P. Morgan Chase had Jamie Dimon said,
Home in the States underground there's a cave full of gold. Back up a truck and we'll fill it with all it can hold.
quote, if anyone wants to push that button, i.e. fail to raise the debt ceiling, which I think would be catastrophic and unpredictable, I think they're crazy. The point is that the president, through his actions both in the first 2 years in office, when he demonstrated through the way he created the health care recovery, rather the Health Care Act, the Affordable Care Act, with its deficit reduction built into it, through his signing, or rather his agreement on Friday to enact the deepest discretionary spending cuts in history, has shown that he is committed to deficit reduction. And we do not need to play chicken with our economy by linking the raising of the debt ceiling to anything. We should do that right away.
He cast that vote 5 years ago and issued those strongly stated views, and as recently as earlier this year, I believe, Jake asked your predecessor about this, and we didn't hear that it was a mistake. When did the president come to realization this was a mistake?
Well, we asked him, and he made clear that he now believes it was a mistake, and he understands that when you're in the legislature, when you're in the Senate, you want to make clear your position if you don't agree with the policies of the administration. But there are many other ways to do it, and I would say, and also there is the fact in this case that the efforts to link this to the President's commitment to deficit reduction are unnecessary precisely because he has demonstrated his commitment so clearly, and will again on Wednesday when he lays out his vision for long-term deficit reduction.
Take 10 million and please don't fuss if you find it can't be spent. You can lend it right back to us and we'll pay you 7%. Money, 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 money.
Established. The economic impact of holding hostage the debt ceiling vote to other considerations would be catastrophic. So I think the need to move on this is quite clear.
One.
Sam puts it right on the line. And if that fellow with whiskers ever should decline, you can have mine, all of mine. You can have mine.
Can be supported by the American people, and that is good for the American economy and the American people. And he believes separately we should raise the debt limit so that all the good work that has been done to move this economy forward, to create an atmosphere now where we are growing regularly now, quarter by quarter, where we are creating jobs month by month, that all that progress is not put into jeopardy, because that is what would happen if we were not to raise the debt ceiling.
Sam puts it right on the line. And if that fellow with whiskers ever should decline, you can have